Good evening, everyone. I am Gayatri Uppal, and I work as Associate Director at the Sher-Gil Sundaram Arts Foundation, or SSAF. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you on behalf of the Sher-Gil Sundaram Arts Foundation to this evening's event, the grantee announcement of the Umrao Singh Sher-Gil Grant for Photography for the category of documentary photography. The grantee announcement will be followed by a lecture by Shahidul Alam, and it will be chaired by Naeem Mohaiman. To briefly introduce SSAF, it was established in 2016 with the mandate to carry forward the legacy of scholar and photographer Umrao Singh Sher-Gil, his daughter and a pioneering figure of modern Indian art, Amrita Sher-Gil, and her nephew and niece, artist Bhuyan Sundaram, and filmmaker and television journalist Navina Sundaram. Since its inception, the Foundation's mandate has been to support and enable conjunctions of artistic and cultural practice that deal with historical memory, with a view towards building futures based on secular principles and freedom of expression. SSAF is committed to advancing creative independence and supporting alternative and heterodox practices. And I encourage you to visit our website, ssaf.in, to learn more about our programs. Established in 2015, the Umrao Singh Sher-Gil Grant for Photography recognizes a photographer's commitment to the constructed image as well as documentary photography. Umrao Singh Sher-Gil, born in 1870, was a scholar of Persian and Sanskrit who spent a contemplative life in pursuit of knowledge of the arts and the philosophy of religion. His photographic practice, in keeping with his reclusive nature, was a private affair, and his principal subjects were his family and himself. In 2007, a retrospective exhibition of Umrao Singh's modern and vintage prints was held at the Rencontre d'Arles Photography Festival in France, followed by exhibitions at the National Gallery of Modern Art in Delhi and Mumbai. This retrospective having garnered critical attention, Umrao Singh was recognized as a photographer of considerable importance. His self-portraits span almost 60 years and make up a unique archive. He is now regarded as a pioneering figure of the mise-en-scène or stage photography in India. In 2022, SSAF pledged 2 annual photography grants in Umrao Singh's name to encourage independent voices in photography, each reflecting on the constructed image and documentary photography. The grant is intended to assist photographers who have started a project and require financial assistance to complete their work. The applicants for the 2 grants within the Umrao Singh Sher-Gil Grant for Photography 2022 were selected by 20 nominators from across the country. I would now like to extend a very warm welcome to our jury for the grant, Jury Chair Shahidul Alam, and jury members Ketaki Sheth and Tanvi Mishra. I now invite the jury chair, Shahidul Alam, to announce the 2022 grantee for the category of documentary photography and to read the jury statement, and also request the jury members, Ketaki Sheth and Tanvi Mishra, to say a few words.
Hi. It's always challenging to assess the potential for forthcoming work based on what has been submitted. But that was what we had to do. What was presented was a valid indicator of the visual ability of the photographer. What we needed to map out, however, was where the photographer was taking us, whether what was being attempted was realistic, whether it had been well thought out, assessing the risks involved and what it meant, both for the photographer and for the subjects, whether the budget was reasonable, and above all, what impact the grant would have had on the photographer's practice. We had a fabulous jury, and we didn't always agree, but we were able to draw on our collective expertise sufficiently to let go of our personal favorites, to embrace the insights that emerged from what each of us was able to tease out from the delightful range of work that had been submitted. We invited the top contenders to speak to us, and our conversation with them gave us further insight into the thought processes that accompanied their projects. Their passion, commitment, and concern for the people whose lives they were documenting was unmistakable. In the case of the winner, Prakash Bhuyan, and congratulations, Prakash, the conversation also revealed his knowledge of the region, being a resident of Assam, as well as his ongoing research on the Indo-Bangladesh border and the surrounding areas in Meghalaya where the Garo live. They were clearly work by several photographers which were powerful, moving, sensitive, and intimate. The sheer range of work and the diverse interpretation of documentary photography itself was refreshing. We deliberately chose not to get so hung up about definitions, but rather went for the spirit of documentary photography, the adherence to facts, and the non-fictional aspect of the genre. Having said that, the work finally selected, after considerable reflection, this classical documentary in nature. Prakash's work was sensitive, lyrical, gentle, and focused. His budget and direction were clear. The fact that he had identified voices on both sides of the border offers a nuanced dimension to the narrative, and we hope that his final images, he's working on a book with a poetic text, will bring attention to this lesser documented but complex subject, tackling notions of identity, belonging, and citizenship. His language of photography is considered, taking care while attempting to bring out stories of persecution and oppression. His approach is dignified, and his visual language is quiet, using portraiture and landscape as tropes to recall memory. His tender portraits, along with images that read like traces, attempt to showcase an identity of a place and people. In today's times of fast-paced news and the push towards the spectacular, Prakash relies on the subliminal, trying to track families on both sides of the border that were separated during partition, and also after subsequent measures of border control. His attempt to record personal and cultural memory within the larger political project can stand as a story for many persecuted communities, the individuals of which bear the cost of decisions taken without their voices taken into account. We thank all the participants for trusting us with their work, for sharing their concerns, and wish them the very best in the completion of their projects.
Congratulations, Prakash. We really looked at your work very carefully, and it was so useful to talk to you at the end of our deliberations, because we got a greater sense of where your project was going after talking to you. Thank you, Shahidul and Tanvi, and thank you, Vivan and his team for, in my time, there were no awards for photography. Now there are 2 from one institution in 1 year. So I think it's a lot to be said about photography, and I think there's a lot of hope for a lot of people. So although Prakash won it this year, I'm sure there will be many opportunities for those that didn't win this award, because there are so many places now one can go to. And I really want to thank Vivan for instituting this, because, as I said, there was just nothing in my time. And now there are mentors, there are galleries, there are gallerists, there are awards, there are books. And from what I understand from Prakash, he wants to work towards a book. And I wish him every success. And I hope we can get to see the finished product, of which we were only able to see the beginning. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Prakash. I'm very happy to be awarding for you to be the awardee this year. I think one of the things that really stood out for us was
the dignity with which you capture the people that you photograph. Apart from the tenderness and the quiet in your images, the dignity really was very palpable, and that's what drew me and a lot and the rest of the jury towards your work. Also, something that really stood out for us was the way that your application was put together. It was a really well edited application, which we could see that you had put in thought into it. And also, I think it's quite hard to, as Sher-Gil said, that to judge where a work is going to go by images that have already been produced. And in your case, the way that you had chalked out your future plan, how that was linked to the work you've already done in Sylhet, and also how you already have leads that you want to chase rather than just the concept and the idea, really motivated us to give you this grant. And it's a story that's not really, so many Indigenous communities have struggles that don't come into media or mainstream media, seeing the state that our media is in now anyway. And so we really look forward to your final product and really support this venture that you're undertaking. So good luck, and we'll be watching to see what you produce. So congratulations again.
Thank you, Sher-Gil, Ketaki, and Tanvi. I now invite the founder and managing trustee of the Sher-Gil Sundaram Arts Foundation, Bhuyan Sundaram, to say a few words.
Thank you all, three of you, Sher-Gil, Ketaki, who I know for a long time, and Tanvi, I met on the screen for the first time. I must say that the thoughtful reflections in the text and your own speaking about it, that with the differences you have really put together a position of, shall I say, not to be running to get the post first, but to support a photographer who is thinking, and I'm very pleased to hear that you were able to speak to him, and that contributed a great deal to the fact that he got the award. I mean, there is that cliched now cliched statement about using the word the thinking photographer or self-reflecting one, and obviously Prakash has fitted the bill according to three of you, and you're all three very exceptional people, and I'm so glad that this unified position has given him the award. And I'm sure that whoever thinks that, oh, in fact, you very honestly said this is conservative documentary photography, and you're confidently saying it, that I'm sure that he will take it forward and also help people that they don't have to do something very avant-garde, but think about what they're doing. I congratulate all of you and thank you for awarding Prakash the grant for 2022.
It's wonderful to have Prakash with us this evening. Many congratulations, Prakash. And I invite you to briefly talk about your project across with us, and we'll be sharing some images as well.
Thank you, Grantee. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Sher-Gil Sundaram Art Foundation for honoring me with the grant and enabling me to continue my work. I thank the jury for believing in me to shape this project further. I am grateful to the nominatees for nominating my work for this prestigious grant, and I must thank the Toto Fun Stars for recognizing this work to the Toto Award for Photography in 2022. I started this work in 2018 when I was a student in Pathshala. I thank my teachers at Pathshala for their guidance at the early stage of this work. In Pathshala, we had a residency in Sunamganj in the Sylhet district of Bangladesh. When I was there, one of the local people from Sunamganj told me that the Indo-Bangla international border was nearby. Out of curiosity, I decided to go and see the border. At that point, I had no intention of making any work in the context of the border. When I arrived at Narantala, a small village approximately 10 kilometers from the border, the landscape was familiar to the landscape I grew up in Assam. The vast open field, the stillness of the moon, and cows grazing, as if I arrived in the landscape of my childhood. When I met the people, as soon as they knew that I was from Assam, they invited me to their homes and began sharing with me the stories of their relatives, far and close, who now lives in Assam and Meghalaya. After that initial trip, I kept going back. One of the reasons to go back was the familiarity of the landscape, to the landscape of my childhood, which was comforting, as I had recently lost my mom. And secondly, the people. They made me feel like a part of their family. They would ask me if I knew a certain relative of them who is now a doctor in Tezpur, Assam, or if I had ever been to Balat, the nearby border town in Meghalaya, where some of their relatives live. At that point, it seemed the only thing that is standing between them and me was the border. And now it has been 4 years since. My work in the village attempted to anchor personal histories of the people in the broader context of the history of migration, mobility, identity formation, and nation building. As oral history is the traditional way of keeping records of personal and collective memory within the community, the images are made in response to the personal stories which the people I met shared with me. Across reflects on how ideas of belonging, family, identity, and cultural memory are shaped and reinterpreted by the consequences of making of nation states and drawing of borders. This project has taught me a lot over the years. It has been an important part of my growth as an individual as well. On this note, once again, I thank Sher-Gil Foundation for this honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash, and congratulations again on receiving the grant.